While we do this, though, I kind of want to rant a little bit about something. Fonsui and I used to go back and forth about the fitting tool, the fitting window, specifically the simulator, and its value in Eve versus things like, other external tools like Python or whatever, right? So one of the core philosophies of like when they do these kinds of things is that they try not to step on what already exists, right? So whether you agree or not, it was a concern of CCPs that when they made the fitting window, that they didn't step on tools such as Python. Now, on the one hand, I kind of can understand, like, as a third-party developer, like, if CCP made this tradition of like, oh, that's a really cool third-party add-on, we're just going to copy it and take it from you. Like, that has had some bad feelings in other communities, like WoW or whatever. But I also think that, especially given the fact that, like, as time goes on, more and more of our tools and features and websites end up not being maintained. It really hurts our ability to quality control the tools that are available to our players. And more importantly, if a tool exists only as a third-party add-on, then that means that that tool, it only exists for people who have hit that level of sophistication that they're actually utilizing third-party add-ons, which some people just don't want to do that. Some people haven't learned about it. But if you're talking about a tool that's to help you learn how to play the game, then expecting you to know something about how to do that beyond what is absolutely necessary is a challenge, right? Like the expectation that a new bro will stumble upon Python and then use it to discover how the mechanics of the game works is absolutely absurd. However, there's still some really big features and value to Python that I don't think should be brought to EVE Online per se. A good example would be, Python, you can make a fit and it'll find all of the modules that are of the same type as that fit, and then, or as the modules in your fit, and see whether or not any of them have the exact same stats and yet are cheaper. I think third-party apps are actually part of the new the partner program. That's a good point, Gaurav. But still, like let's say they make a perfect clone of Python in EVE Online, rendering Python completely obsolete. Now Python has no justification of being in the partnership program. All of the work that they have put into Python, Golden Gecko, right? Put into Python is now totally gone, and he can't maintain his sponsorship because nobody's using his tool anymore because it's been replaced. You see what I'm saying? So it is a concern, but I think that there's a lot of tools in Python in understanding like niche situations or optimizing stuff or looking at the graphs of stuff and calculating based on your specific skill changes or specific rat profiles, including like determining tracking and all that sort of stuff. Like all that stuff is I think a good thing for Python to have that is not necessary in an in-game tool. That's just a little bit too much, right? But, and here's kind of the thesis of my statement. The proving conduits, the weekend PvP scenarios have basically, they've been relatively popular recently, but what they have done is demonstrate the weaknesses of the fitting tool in game. The best example of this was, I think, last weekend or the weekend before. Either way, if the weather within the event affects your ship's systems in some sort of way, you cannot like develop that system. Wow, this is not great. You cannot develop that system sorry, you cannot develop a build taking into compensation those changes, and use it in the proving conduit. For example, if I want to make an electrical frigate for standard Abyss, the electrical conduit or the electrical filament increases my cap regeneration, which means ships that are non-viable, non-cap stable in normal space are viable and cap stable in electrical conduits. Likewise, there are definitely versions of the proving conduits that likewise also affect your ship's things like your turret ranges, right? Here's the problem with that. If it affects your turret ranges, you know, especially like if I'm a laser pilot, for example, I'm going to need to swap my ranges and my crystals to match the correct range for what I'm trying to fight at. So it's important to me as a laser pilot for me to memorize the proper range, the correct ranges for that ship with that weapon system, you know, so that way I can swap based on the correct ranges. In this scenario, if I wanted to do that, I would actually have to jump into the proving conduit and then look at my guns and its effectiveness while in the proving conduit to see what the effects of the proving conduit does to me. Now, you could theoretically argue that this might be okay in electricals because, you know, you kind of have plenty of time. You can pre-clear the sites. And, you know, I've even jokingly made a fit in the Abyss using electricals before just to prove you could. But a proving conduit pretty much guarantees that, you know, there's somebody coming to own you at the same time. So, you don't really have that much time to dally, and every second counts. It would be so convenient, and in my opinion, at this point, necessary for there to be like a drop down in the fitting tool that allows one to simulate basic weather conditions. Not just you know, I'm not saying like you don't necessarily have to do like every implant set or something like that. Although I do like the idea of like implant sets that are in the cargo or boosters in the cargo could be applied or whatever. But like, I'm not worried about all that. I'm worried about the, I'm worried about being able to look at abyssal weather types and how it affects my ship. I'm looking at, the proving conduit, the current active proving conduit, and being able to see its effects. And also, I would like to have it so that it shows me alpha, right? I can swap it to alpha mode, and then it shows me what I can fit and how effective I would be if I was alpha at this exact second. One of the things that really frustrates me is that as an Omega pilot, it is incredibly difficult for me to build a good alpha build without, you know, like within the alpha context, because it like doesn't show me an alpha context. I have to look at like every single module to see whether or not it has that thing, which isn't great. So I would really like wormhole effects would be good too, but in particular, the abyssal conduit or abyssal filaments, proving conduits, and alpha status, I believe is absolutely essential to be added into EVE Online to help make it into a learnable game. It could easily be just like a drop-down box somewhere within the simulator, even if it's like right here, that allows you to select what effect is going on. So, yep. The simulator is really good, but without the ability to simulate specific weather conditions, it is truly limiting for people who are just trying to take a poke at proving conduits, which they've so far demonstrated they kind of want it to be, you know, newbie friendly, accessible to people. So make it the ability to build fits for it to be accessible to people too. That's all I'm asking.